It's September 10th, 2013. And I'm heading off to work. Anyway, let's see. Syria has been in the news recently. I guess there's a lot of situations in the world where it's kind of people fighting for various reasons. And I guess the question is whether we can continue to borrow money from China so that we can fight those, protect people. That's a good question. The underlying bureaucracy in America might answer yes to that question. Even though the current teabagger leaders might say no. But I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, yesterday I found some information about Agent Orange, and about how it's still deforming children in Vietnam. Remember the Vietnam War? Anyway, I was either not around or just involved with Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers while the Vietnam War was going on. So I wasn't involved really, and I guess at the time they tried to force you to be involved. Basically, all of the people who fought in World War II, they figured, oh, hey, I was drafted, and so therefore we'll go ahead and draft other people. No problem. To fight this war that we think should happen. So that's basically what happened. The children, the people who fought in World War II, said, they decided to use the same thing that was used on them. Worked on them, I guess we could work it on our kids too. Make our kids go to war. Vietnam. And then we use a chemical weapon, and I found that the courts have turned down victims' claims for Vietnamese victims' claims because the court said, oh, the Agent Orange or napalm wasn't intended to be used on people, and so therefore we're going to deny your claim. But that's bullshit, because the people in Vietnam lived in the woods. Didn't intend to be used on people. That's bullshit. Anyway, a court should take into account what the effects are, If you reasonably know something is going to do X, Y, and Z to a person, and you put it down there where people are, you are intending to do it to people. So that's a bullshit reply from the courts in the U.S. Okay, so the U.S. has used chemical weapons. We have a history of it. Now, admittedly, I had nothing to do with it, the policy, but now that I'm an adult, I can comment on it and comment on what I think should happen. So here's what I think should happen. We should give proper reparations to the Vietnamese who were damaged by Agent Orange, and help with people who are currently being affected, and do what we can to eradicate its presence in those areas. Why are children continuing to have birth defects from it? You know, what the hell? The EPA should be involved in that. Okay, so there's that. So regarding Syria, did they use chemical weapons? Well, anyway, I'm not really sure whether it was the government or whether it was the rebels. You know, there has been situations in wars in the past where people have sacrificed villages for the sake of victory. So it's not an Al-Qaeda does all sorts of nutty shit. And I think Al-Qaeda might be present in Syria, so it's possible that it wasn't the government, or you know, it could have been some soldiers who weren't really all that under that much control, because Assad is losing control. So anyway, I can agree with maybe the Russian plan of having international control over the chemical weapons there and having them taken away and destroyed. That sounds like a reasonable middle plan to me. And as far as getting rid of Assad, I think we should try to assist the secular advocates in Syria as much as we can, but it's kind of a difficult prospect because the nutty whacks seem to be able to organize better and, you know, convince people, believe in Fundi Islam if you want to have social services from your local Hamas and Al-Qaeda chapter. You know, if the secular advocates could do that a little bit better, that would be good. Anyway, but maybe there's kind of a cycle of the increasingly reactionary, increasingly religious side, or increasingly dogmatic. You can just put religious/dogmatic. Maybe there's kind of a part of a culture that will react naturally to oppression. And then maybe in the longer term, things become more secular or more reasonable by default. So, for example, we could consider the Taliban a natural reaction to the incursion of the Soviets, right? And it's true that the Taliban did a lot of bad things, but if we would have done nothing in Afghanistan, hypothetically, maybe in the longer term, they would have become more reasonable. So you have to think about humanity as kind of this, and human social interaction is kind of this organic creature. And perhaps it's natural for increasingly reactionary, increasingly dogmatic elements to respond to threats and incursions and oppression. You know, even the Muslim Brotherhood, and then maybe in the longer term things become more reasonable. You know, I don't know. Is that how it works with humans? It's a question, I guess. So anyway, regarding Syria, I think if the UK isn't going to go for it, then I'm kind of reluctant for us to do it, I guess. And I can agree with the Russian plan to confiscate the weapons and maybe have the International Criminal Court investigate Assad's culpability and stuff like that. And the Syrian people should be dealing with ejecting Assad. And we can help the secular advocates, but if Al-Qaeda's there trying to kick him out, then I think we should maybe hold off, you know. We shouldn't be Al-Qaeda's Air Force. I'm going to agree with that also. So anyway, that's that. So those are my views on that situation, and I guess that's all I'll say on that for now, for today. Okay, have fun.